Welcome back to Old School Sports and our franchise Hockey Manager 9 playthrough of the Chicago Blackhawks. We are at the start of the preseason for the 2023 to 2024 season. So, going to review all the activity we've had over the past couple months. In our last episode, we covered a flurry of initial free agent activity as well as the draft. And we have made another few moves since then, getting to the punchline before I've told you the joke. I think the Blackhawks should be a playoff team this season. I'm going to go on record and say that right now. As I just mentioned, when free agency began, we signed Dylan Larkin, who I viewed as the top player available. You can see he's averaged 30 goals with the Red Wings over the last two seasons. And we ended up signing up for 6 years, $6.5 million to join us as a 27-year-old. I think that's a pretty good contract for us. Also signed Ross Colton to give us another winger. Not quite as good a player, but still a productive player. Not a long-term commitment either. $4.35 million a year over 3 seasons. And then I don't know if most importantly, but certainly Larkin and Blackwood were bigger acquisitions in my view than Colton. We signed Mackenzie Blackwood to take over as our starting goalie, a proven NHL goalie who we picked up for 3 years, close to $5 million a year. And that will allow us to move last year's starter, Anthony Stolars, who we picked up off of waivers, to move to a backup role for us, which should make us a better team overall. After those moves in free agency, we signed several younger free agents in kind of organizational depth as free agents, but not players who should make a big difference. But we did make a big trade with the Red Wings. We ended up sending them defenseman Ian Mitchell, Philip Kurashev, and a 5th and a 7th round pick for Philip Hronek, who is a better defenseman than Kurashev. I've wanted to kind of improve our blue line. Bringing on Hronek, I think, definitely does that. He was in the last year of his contract, and we subsequently paid up $6.6 million a year for the next 3 seasons to get him on board. So a 20% raise for Hronek, but we think that he's a better defenseman than Mitchell, and we didn't have to give up too much. Kurashev is a decent player, so is Ian Mitchell, and we had him signed for a few years, but I think Hronek is definitely better. And at 25 years old, hopefully a guy that we can build around for the next several seasons. And then we made a move that was more of a win-now kind of transaction with the Los Angeles Kings. And we gave up a fair amount for 30-year-old right-wing Victor Arvidsson. Kind of felt like we needed a little more offense on the wings. And Arvidsson can definitely give that to us. No long-term commitment here. He's in the last year of his contract, and we had plenty of cap space after trading away a lot of our big-time players last season in our first year running the team. Had to give up a 4th, a 6th, and a 7th, as well as right winger Reese Johnson, whose position on the squad Arvidsson is going to take. So not a huge loss there because Arvidsson is better, particularly offensively. And then goalie Jackson Stauber, who's not really a big-time prospect. So with the addition of the 3 free agents, Arvidsson and Hronek, we were the first team out of the playoffs in all of the NHL last season. So I kind of feel like we've made some pretty significant improvements this offseason, which is why I started off the episode saying I think we should be a playoff team this year, even though, according to ownership, they just are looking for us to rebuild and be in the top 3/4 of the league. That is a goal that I think is definitely achievable. The signings that we made, as well as the fact that we had 2 first-rounders in the draft, has the fans actually really excited about the season. The locker room is in pretty good shape, very harmonious. We've gotten rid. One of the reasons that we did trade away Ian, I forget Ian who. It was the trade for, if I can find, Hronek and his history. Ian Mitchell. One of the reasons we traded away Ian Mitchell was one, Hronek was better and he was going to take his spot, but also Ian Mitchell was unpopular with his teammates, so that was part of the reason we were willing to move him. One negative thing, Jake McCabe, stay-at-home defenseman, seems to be out of shape. I'm not going to ignore it, but not going to criticize him publicly, so we'll criticize him internally. And we'll see if there's any reaction to that. But you got one job to do, dude. Come back in shape. So we are at the start of the preseason right now on September 20th. Going to sim through the next few weeks of the preseason, see if we can get Mr. McCabe back into shape. We've brought up 32 players on the roster right now. I think we have a pretty good sense of what things are going to look like. I think Colton Dock, we're going to have him spend most of this year in the minors. Don't think he's quite ready to contribute. Lucas Reichel, tougher situation. I think he probably could still use a little more seasoning. Those are probably the two biggest prospects that we actually have signed. Well, Korchinski, should have mentioned him. Yeah, those three are the big guys. Korchinski, we can send him back to the WHL, which I think we probably will. Going to take a look at him in camp, but don't think any of those guys are really quite ready. And if I have them up here on the big squad in the NHL, want to make sure that they're getting pretty consistent playing time. So those three should be helping us, I would think, within the next 12 to 18 months. But unlikely that they're going to be making the NHL roster out of preseason camp. But we'll see how they do, give them a little playing time, see if they can get a little bit assimilated and a little bit of synergy with the rest of the folks on the team, and we'll sim through this preseason and hopefully get the Blackhawks ready for a pursuit of a playoff appearance when this season is finally done. And one other thing I did do in the off season, or tried to do in the off season, that I didn't mention. We tried to pick up a couple of restricted players from the Rangers in both cases. Right wing Vitaly Kravtsov, made an offer to him. We would have had to give up a second round pick, but the Rangers ultimately matched that, which I was kind of hoping they would do because I was hoping they would run out of money and not be able to, or not decide to match an offer that we made for Philip Chittle. But they ended up matching that. We would have had to give up a second rounder to bring him on board. As it turned out, we didn't need to do that because the Rangers matched the offer, but thought that both of those players in their early 20s were pretty established NHL players that we could try to build around. As it turned out, didn't matter because the Rangers matched our offer sheets. So that's kind of the only other interesting or somewhat interesting thing we were involved in during the off season. I think I covered the two big trades, and then obviously we covered the draft and the 3 free agent signings in detail in our previous episode. And we've got a couple games left before the end of training camp, but we have a young team, so would expect it to be pretty positive as far as our development. And you can see that particularly some important players for our future, like Colton Dock, definitely improved during his time with the team. Good to see some pretty significant improvement from Kevin Korchinski also. And then some of our picks from this most recent draft, Matteo Rotundi, looking good. Antonin Vero, Joey Vetrano with an incredible camp in Halifax. Julien Hebert. So a lot of our young players showing a lot of significant improvement, which is good. And only one player kind of going in the wrong direction, Phoenix Copley, who will be off to AAA soon. Not AAA, it's the AHL. We're playing hockey, not baseball right now. So pretty good camp all in all. You know, the young guys are the real big development, which is what you'd expect. But there are a few guys in their mid-20s who did have some improvements also, which is good to see. And turn into the financial end of things, season ticket sales over 17,000. You may remember from when we finished up last season and actually be gone this season, we did expand the United Center by about 1,100 seats. We were mostly sold out last year, so instead of raising ticket prices, we added room to bring more people in to watch the Blackhawks. Hopefully with the high fan interest that we have right now and the fact that I think our team should be better on the ice, we'll be at capacity most nights and be generating some good money that way. Luxury box sold 127 out of 160. Owner pleased with that amount. And season ticket numbers, guessing we may be the best in the league. Looks like we are. You can't ask for anything better than that. The 17,018 season tickets. Yeah, I didn't have to scroll through. I could have just read up here. Anytime you're beating the Canadiens in something hockey related, you're doing something right. And Patrick Kane, have not mentioned, has been banged up. Nothing serious, just a facial cut, but he's missed the last couple days of the preseason. Obviously not going to play today in the final game of the season. We're playing the Islanders back-to-back. We're in New York yesterday, home against the Islanders today. And then that'll be it for the preseason. And we finished off with a 7-0 win in the preseason against the Islanders. Cole Gutman, who's probably headed to the AHL, had 3 goals. New addition Ross Colton with a goal and 4 assists. So all in all, it was a good camp for the Blackhawks. You can see we had a 5-2 record, so that was good. Even more importantly than that, though, other than McCabe coming in unfit and still being a bit unfit, and Kane having that minor facial cut, which should be healed up by the time the regular season starts. Nobody on the injury list, so we got through camp healthy. Going to start making our final cuts to get from 32 to 23. Not expecting any big surprises, but we'll let you know when it starts getting to the point where the decisions get a little difficult. So the first cut's going to be a real easy decision, sending Phoenix Copley down to the AHL. Some of the other cuts are also pretty simple. Korchinski, we talked about. We are going to loan him to Seattle for this season. Don't think he's quite ready. He will probably be in the AHL or the NHL next season. Jack Rathbone is a guy that we are going to send back to the AHL. He's kind of a nice insurance policy for us as far as our defensemen. Lucas Reichel, not quite ready yet. Seems like he can be a very good player, and he's getting to the point where he spent a lot of time in the AHL, but I just don't think he's ready yet when you look at the game ratings that he's been putting up and you just look at his profile. He's a player that we think has got a ton of potential, but he's just not really there yet. There is a chance that he might develop a little better at the NHL level than the AHL level, but as I mentioned, we are thinking that this team is going to be competing for a playoff berth this year. So from that perspective, not really willing to let people learn on the job quite yet. Going to send down Michael Tepli also to Rockford. So he is going to be down. That takes us to 27 players. Colton Dock, we do have to do something with now. I don't think he's quite ready. He's out of the juniors now at this point. I think we're going to let him hopefully have a meteoric rise through the minor leagues this year, but we're actually going to start him down with Indy in the ECHL. Don't think he's going to be there very long, but hopefully he can play a couple months there, bring him up to the AHL, and then maybe towards the end of this season, he'll be up with the big club. Another player who we have big hopes for but who's not quite ready is Noah Allen, another player who's now out of the juniors. So we're going to start him down in the ECHL also, see if he can do some early damage down there with Indy. Also going to send down Jalen Luipin. He's going to go to Rockford in the AHL. And that leaves us with one more cut to make. And we've got one cut left to make. Cole Gutman was potentially on the bubble. You can see that last year he was really productive in the AHL and was actually reasonably productive in 5 games with Chicago. Given that he's 24 years old, don't mind as much if he's not regularly playing for us. But we are going to keep him up, because if we keep him up, that'll give us 14 frontline players. And then we'll end up keeping 7 defensemen and 2 goalies, which means that we need to get rid of a defenseman since we've got 8 on the squad right now. Hronek is going to make the team. Seth Jones is going to make the team. Connor Murphy's going to make the team. Jake McCabe's going to make the team, even though he's fat and out of shape. Caleb Jones going to be back. Dennis Chalowski going to be back. So it's the 2 youngsters, Nicholas Bodin and Alec Regula, who are battling for the final spot. Unfortunately, both of these guys are also going to have to pass through waivers, so there's a chance that we could lose one of them. The deciding factor, given that they're pretty similar players, is I'm ultimately going to be team harmony, and Nicholas Bodin is not that popular with his teammates, so that means that we're a little more willing to lose him. I guess we could try to trade him, because he is a young enough player that there's a chance we'll lose him. And you can see there's a lot of interest. I'm going to go through these and see if maybe we can just ship him out for a draft pick, because judging by the amount of interest there was in him, we're going to lose him if we put him through waivers. And we're going to go ahead and take a 4th round pick from the Predators for Bodin. Would have liked to keep him around, but I do think there was a chance that, honestly, more than a chance that we would end up losing him. Looks like Nashville was pretty active trading for players near the end of camp. So good camp for the Blackhawks. You can see that newcomers Dylan Larkin were up there in goals scored, and Ross Colton was up there in assists, and our new goalie Blackwood was up there in wins. Boy, that's what you like to see. You signed 3 big free agents, and at least through the preseason you see the 3 of them all over the leaderboards. Hopefully that's a good sign that we can move this season from being on the outside of the playoffs looking in to competing for the Stanley Cup come the spring. And so with our 23-man roster still in very good shape salary-wise, less than $77 million. So if We did want to add some salary as we get closer to the trade deadline if we have some injuries and we really are competing. We've got the ability to do that pretty easily, which is nice. Really interested in seeing what we can get from Arvidsson in the 1 year that we're going to have him. Horvat, who joined us late last season. Those two players, in addition to the free agents, and then Hronek. A lot of new guys that we're very interested in seeing how they can produce for the Blackhawks in this 2023 to 2024 season that's about to get underway. And no shock that the captain, Patrick Kane, has the top-selling jersey. Relatively new addition, Bo Horvat, and very new addition, Dylan Larkin also. And then the goalies, of course, with Stolars and new addition Blackwood look like the most popular Chicago jerseys. And Kane and Horvat, both among the top 20 in the league. So that is good to see as well. A couple of the players we sent down, namely Phoenix Copley and Jack Rathbone, are going to need to clear waivers, and we will see what goes on the waiver wire. I don't think we're going to be all that active, given that I kind of like the team we put together, but you never know. And with the fact that we do have Gutman, who still qualifies as a rookie on the 23-man roster, I know I was just saying I don't think he's got anything else to learn in the AHL, and that don't feel bad if he's on the team and not playing every day. But if we can make our team better, I don't have a problem sending him down either. And there are a couple of interesting players on the waiver wire. Rasmus Kupari from the Kings, 23-year-old, also a center, and I think he's just a better player right now. His contract is not that bad, less than $900,000 a year, and making less than $125,000 if he goes to the minors. Doesn't seem like he's going to be a big problem in the locker room. And not going to feel bad if he doesn't get a ton of playing time. So I think at the very least we're going to try to put in a claim on him. Don't know that it's going to go through, but to me he's kind of the most interesting guy out there. Tyler Angle is also interesting as a prospect. You know, maybe we put in a claim on him as well. For some reason, we don't seem to know as much about him. But at this point, he's probably still a better player than Gutman is. I mean, Gutman's concern is really just he's not much of a help on the defensive end at all, which is a problem. Not that he's going to be playing a ton, but if you've got a guy who's going to be playing a game a week for you, unless somebody's banged up, you'd like him to be able to contribute a little bit on the defensive end. But I don't want to get in a situation where we got to pick up a couple of players. So I think we're just going to do the one claim at this point. And unfortunately, we lost Jack Rathbone, who we had put on waivers, so that's clearly not optimal. Oliver Wahlstrom waived by the Islanders. He's not a bad player. What's his contract situation? Yeah, if we don't get our guy, but I'm not seeing where anything has been decided. But perhaps I missed something. And it doesn't look like we got the player that we put in the waiver claim on, but didn't get an email that he went somewhere else either, so not sure what's going on there. Taves is still actually a free agent which is kind of sad. I think he's still probably looking for, yeah, he's looking for $7.5 million. If he was looking for something a little more reasonable, I would absolutely bring him back, but doesn't seem that he is. So because of that, I think I am going to potentially still consider moving on from Gutman. I think that it might just be because I played as the Islanders last year in FHM 8 when I did a long playthrough. But Wahlstrom is not a bad player. Certainly would not mind putting him onto our roster. So we're going to go ahead and claim Wahlstrom, and we'll see whether that one goes through. And it looks like the Kings ended up with Wahlstrom, but at least we gave it a shot. Fine, Cole Gutman can change his number. That never seems to work for me. I have the option set to have my assistant manage the jersey numbers because it's just not that interesting to me. But as you just saw, they asked me to manage some jersey number stuff. Don't know if that's just a bug for me or something that everyone else experiences. But the big news is that we are to the beginning of the season. We don't have a game for quite a while, quite honestly. But it is technically opening night. Waivers have gone through. And with that, we are going to, I guess we'll sim up to our first game. We're almost done with this episode, don't worry, but might as well sim up to the first game and then see if we're all healthy and well. Would be nice if Mr. McCabe gets into shape at some point. And we do have another player on waivers. We're going to put a claim in on Ty Dellandrea from the Stars. Try to make a claim on him. Don't know that it's going to go through, but we will find out. And it looks like the Islanders got Dellandrea, so seems to be a theme here where we're not getting any of the players that we're trying to pick up off of waivers, but things continue to go crazy on the waiver wire. There's still a lot of players out there, as we've been talking about. We would move on from Gutman and send him down if we can pick up another frontline player who we think is better than him, which Pickens probably getting a little slimmer with each round of waivers that we go through, but we're going to take a look and see who's out there, whether there's anyone interesting. The one thing that I do notice now is that there used to be a lot of younger players in their early 20s. Now we're kind of players in their mid to late 20s on the waiver wire, so I'm thinking they're probably going to be somewhat less interesting to us. Luke Kunin doesn't look horrible, though. He's at least a proven NHL player at this point. Making decent money, but we can afford to take him on. Just don't know if he's exciting enough that we want to use some of the salary cap space we have on him rather than on someone that we could potentially trade for down the line. Matthew Phillips is pretty versatile, can play anywhere on the front line. Not making a ton of money. And I think he is definitely better than Mr. Gutman, at least at this point. I think overall, definitely prefer Phillips offensively. Defensively, neither one of them is a standout, but it's pretty close. Maybe favor Phillips a little bit. Physical ratings, all in all, is even, but probably still favor Phillips a little bit overall. And then the mental ratings, kind of favor Phillips too. So I think he is an upgrade from Gutman. Not a huge upgrade. Definitely preferred some of the younger guys that we were looking at before that we conceivably would have around more than 1 year. But we do think that we're going to try to compete this year. And I think bringing on Phillips makes us a slightly better team. So we'll put on a claim on him and see what happens. And Phillips ended up getting claimed by the Stars, so the circle of us not getting anyone that we're looking for continues. Before we take a look at the preview, let's just take a look at what the waiver wire looks like at this point. And there's still a few guys out there. Jake Evans, I like kind of the physicality and the defense of him. I'm guessing his contract may be a little bit of an issue. Not horrible, $1.7 million. He's not the worst guy in the world to bring on. He's definitely better right now than Gutman is. Gutman's younger. Neither of them is going to be playing all that much for us. At this point, I'm kind of leaning towards sticking with the youngster Gutman. Evans is not a bad player to have, though. He can play center well. He can play right wing pretty well. He's better defensively. I think we're going to put in a claim on Evans. I was getting to the point where I was going to let Gutman just have the job at this point since we've struck out on so many guys, but I think Evans is a little better. Looking at the season preview, that is a little bit odd. Among the dark horses, Edmonton stands out as a possible challenger. I could be wrong, but I believe the Edmonton Oilers are the defending Stanley Cup champions, so that's a little bit odd to call them a dark horse. Doesn't look like we've got any of the top players involved. Yeah, they were the champion last year. It's right here. I'd say the AI on writing these stories probably could be improved a little bit, but I still enjoy the game. And we finally had a waiver claim go through right at the end of the whole process. We did get Jake Evans. So unfortunately for Mr. Gutman, that means that he is going to be heading down to the AHL. Almost made the team, but it was not to be. So Mr. Evans is now a member of the Blackhawks, and you can see we've still got plenty of room to take on salary if we need to as the season goes on. But I think that Evans is definitely a better player right now. Clearly doesn't seem like he's going to be getting much better from where he is today at the age of 27, but is somebody who may not be playing all that frequently. I do like the versatility that he's a pretty established, not just center, but also right winger at the NHL level. And we've made it to our opening night against Colorado. Obviously very early stages, but we're one of many teams that hasn't played yet. The Jets in the Central have already played twice, only 2 points. Nobody else in our division has played yet, and very few people have played, so I'm guessing today is the day where most of the teams get their season started. And as I said, we are optimistic about this season. We think with the 2 big trades we made in the off season, as well as the 3 big free agent signings that we kick things off with, we're definitely a better team than the team that just missed out on the playoffs a year ago. So although ownership does not have particularly high aspirations for us, just want us to finish in the top 3 quarters of the league as we continue the rebuild, we're expecting more than that. And we'll take some steps to kind of find out how we're doing in that goal in our next episode when the puck drops for the Chicago Blackhawks on the 2023 to 2024 season. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.